Hello YouTube viewers and welcome to the Make Me One channel. Today my topic is on how to design a prototype of your project with paper. By paper I mean styrofoam, cardboard, poster board, or the like. You hate drafting plans for your next project? Drawing up plans could be a daunting and seemingly difficult task, especially if you don't have great math skills or are not good at drafting. Generally, novices tend to skip this step and just dive in, planning it out as they go along. However, by doing that, your project sometimes doesn't turn out as you intended it to, and you have to either make major changes to it or scrap it and start over. Much time and wood end up being wasted as a result of not planning ahead. If you hate drawing plans, you may want to make a paper model of your project to be. If you have trouble visualizing how your project will look when it's done, or are not totally sure how you want it to function, making a paper project may make designing easier. To demonstrate my point, take a look at this set of plans to build a bench. Do you find them easy to understand? Are you able to read blueprints well? Are you able to draw a set of plans this detailed? Do you have the time and patience to do this? If you answered yes to all these questions, then click off. This video is not for you. However, I'm not saying that written plans are bad or that you shouldn't use them, but now you are following somebody else's thought process. Thus, very detailed plans can discourage newbie and novice woodworkers like myself from even getting started. But keep in mind, by not using plans, your project may not function totally as you intended. It can be oversized or clunky or too small to accommodate everything it was meant to. If wires or moving parts are involved, fixed pieces in your project can get in the way of them, making it difficult to use. Hence, if you'd rather keep the design phase as simple as possible, making a paper model of your project can be the answer. Sometimes it could even help you understand the plans better. Today I'm going to design a project that will hold my iPad and smartphone side by side, and I just want it wide enough to hold both units, no wider. Before you begin, you'll want to gather all the materials needed in making your paper model. First of all, you want to have as much clear table space as possible. Here are some materials you may want to use: masking tape, pens or pencils, and maybe markers, a speed square, carpenter square, or any straight edge handy for marking, a utility knife or X-Acto knife or the like, maybe a pair of scissors if you prefer to use them, a transparent ruler for smaller projects, any type of glue you wish to use, like Elmer's glue, Scotch tape. Scotch tape I find is better than masking tape as it is transparent and it makes a model look a lot nicer when it's done. A tape measure is nice, especially for larger projects. Double-sided tape is great and holds nicely, especially when putting the first few pieces together. Starting the assembly of your model can be a clumsy and frustrated process, but if you have a little patience, you'll get it started. After that, it gets easier. Finally, you must have each and every item you plan to use on your project right in front of you before you begin. So for my project, this not only means the iPad and the smartphone, but their cords as well, so I can recharge these units while they sit in the stand. By having these cords, I can figure out how to route them so they can be strung through the unit without much difficulty, and the best way to route them is in a straight path. So now let's get started. You will need plenty of styrofoam. You could buy 1/8 inch thick pieces in 20 inch by 30 inch sheets. Be sure you have plenty of them on hand before you begin. Also, you will want to purchase sheets of poster board as they come in sheets about the same size. If you happen to have extra cardboard boxes lying around the house, you can use them as well. All three of these materials can be purchased at art supply stores, grocery stores, and even some dollar stores, wherever art supplies are sold. And to get started, I'm going to take my iPad and smartphone and put them side by side. I want my stand to be just wide enough to hold them both, with a little wiggle room for each, but not much wider. To ensure my stand will be wide enough, I'll go with 16 inches. Again, you should have every vital object you need in front of you when determining the dimensions of your project. So now with my project, I also want to be stable where it cannot be tipped over easily. So therefore it must be so deep. So ahead of time, I cut two 2x2s, each 16 inches long, that will make up my base. Finally, when determining your dimensions, don't forget to add extra length for each board that runs from side to side or front to back inside your project if there are any. Okay, I decided that 16 inches wide by 7 inches deep will be a good dimension for my base. I will now cut the two rectangular pieces of my base and fasten them to my two 2x2s. My next step is to make the back wall. After measuring from the bottom of the base to the top of the iPad, when it's laid out in its horizontal position, I think 9 inches high is a good height. Thus I will cut the back wall at 9 inches by 16 inches and attach it to the back of the base. Next, I am going to put on the left and right side walls. Both pieces should align evenly with the bottom of the base, the front and the back of the unit, and the top of the stand. Therefore, I will cut two 7-inch by 9-inch pieces to make up the two walls. Now I will put in the divider wall. This wall will form two separate compartments, separating the iPad from the smartphone. When deciding where to put the wall, I would like to allow 2 extra inches so the iPad can sit in its own compartment with its recharger cord attached. Because it's sitting on top of the base, the wall will be approximately 8 inches tall instead of 9. Once I cut it, I will tape it into place. Next, I will put up the front wall. First, I will start out by cutting a piece of styrofoam 9 inches high by 16 inches long. This will be the same exact size as the back wall. Second, I will fasten it to the stand, then cut out sections so the iPad screen will be fully visible once it's placed in the stand. I don't know how much of the front wall I will remove just yet, but we'll remove pieces until it looks just right. When finished, I want the front wall to have a lip just big enough not to obstruct the screen, but to prevent the iPad from sliding out. Here goes. Following that is installing what I call the iPad rest. It is a board that leans back approximately 80 degrees and it holds the iPad upright. It will tilt slightly towards the back of the unit. Since I'm not making formal drafts, I'm going to pick an arbitrary angle to mount it in. Though I am not using a protractor, I estimate 80 degrees will be just right. I want this board to be extra strong so that I will glue and tape it in place. I'm just going to position it in so it looks straight and even from left to right. As you can probably see, the board fits in rather loosely, that is, the leaning board. What I should have done was take masking tape along the edges to make the piece more smug. It's best to allow the glue to dry at least 20 minutes. Also, if this were a real project, I would recommend mounting angled boards attached to the sidewalls behind the iPad leaning board to give it extra support. Now I'm making measurements to remove a vital region of the front wall so that the iPad can be fully visible when lying on its side. This will take some time to figure out just where the lines are to be, but once I determine that, I will then cut this area out. My next step is to trim the 3 front to back walls so they taper down to the front wall. Though this might not seem necessary, I do it to improve the looks of the stand. So from back to front, I will cut a tapered line, taking out a triangular region of each. So if you're making this project yourself, you can make single curved or fancy curved corners on the front halves of the divider walls. My final step is making the smartphone cradle. This will attach to the front wall just right of the iPad compartment. When building these stands, and I've built these stands for other people, I would like the front wall of the cradle to be tilted slightly forward, say about 85 degrees. However, you need not tilt it at all if you wish. The front wall will have a cut out just big enough to expose the total screen of the phone, but yet not too big allowing the phone to slip out. Thus, the boards on the left and the right side will have a slight taper to them and will both be the same size as one another. Finally, a bottom piece will be added with a hole cut into it, just big enough to allow the charger cord to be strung through. When making this, just be sure that the hole you make in the bottom piece aligns perfectly with the port on your phone. Oh yes, one more final step. Once the phone cradle has been attached, the middle wall and the rightmost wall ought to be trimmed down to match the leftmost wall. You can trim them down or you can leave them as they are. Personally, I'd rather trim them down, and I'd rather just taper them. This can be simply accomplished by knowing how the cuts will be made and where their starting and ending points will be. Once this is done, your iPad phone rack will look satisfactory. Just be careful not to cut into the pieces that were not meant to be cut, and you'll do okay. Congratulations! If you have followed me along, you have completed your first paper model of the iPad smartphone holder. This thing not only holds these 2 devices, but has 2 compartments to store paper notebooks, papers, clip pads, or whatever you want to use them for. This should give you a feel of designing your own project with disposable materials. By completing this project, you now have template pieces and dimensions you can go by when making your real project. Most of all, you know that your actual stand will function exactly as you want it to, since you went through the phase of designing it with paper first. If you think this is a practical project and maybe plan on building one yourself, please let me know. If you would rather have plans on paper, I can furnish them at your request. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Have a nice day.